I saw a really interesting video you did where you advocated for the importance of private collections. And the reason
Mm,
I was interested in that is that, my main focus right now is Hebrew Bible manuscripts, and most of the important Hebrew Bible manuscripts are in public collections, museums and libraries. Most of them started out in private collections and then
mm.
gradually over time become part of public collections. And I've had colleagues I had one particular colleague who said all those private collectors, their collections should be nationalized. This person is European, and they should become the domain of the state. And so you made a really interesting case for private collections, not talking about manuscripts, just, but in
Yeah.
general. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, I've never heard such a good case made for private collecting. So I want you to share that, just because I don't know if anybody else will be interested in this, but I'm interested in
Yeah.
this.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. That's one of those videos that didn't do well
Mhm.
necessarily compared to some of my other videos, but it's
Okay.
something that it was really one of my personal favorites, because I think it's a discussion that desperately needs to be had, because there's this impression that the best way to protect anything is through institutions and museums, and that's just not true, and history has not borne that out. I mean, when you have major cultural destructions, it's because you have all of these items that are gathered in one place. And so they're vulnerable just because of their density. I mean, when you think about, things like the Library of Alexandria, or what happened in the Middle East with ISIS when they destroyed all. I mean, I don't know the names of everything that got destroyed, but watching those museums be just pillaged and plundered was horrifying to
Well,
see.
there
And
was
it
the
goes on all
pillaging
the
and the
time.
plundering, which I kind of expected more, but ISIS
Yeah.
in 2015 and thereabouts went in when they conquered certain areas and actually said, hey, these are ancient artifacts to collectors, but to us, these are idols and it's idolatry. And our religion
Mhm.
says we should destroy all idols. And they just blew stuff up, like for
Yeah,
no good
yes,
reason.
and that's exactly what I was referring to. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it. It was probably a 20-foot tall statue or something that they were just going at with a jackhammer and an explosive. I mean, it
Well,
was
there's
just
the famous
horrifying to see.
example of the giant Buddha statues in Afghanistan that were blown up by what were the people in the Taliban, right? That was even
Yeah,
before ISIS. Now those aren't actually movable, right?
no,
But there were things in museums that they actually went and blew up, yeah, and destroyed.
yeah. Well, and that's all that I'm saying is that the first step to making sure that you can preserve that history is redundancy, is getting it to where it's not isolated in one area, where it's not subject to a single event like war or
Mhm.
fire or tsunami or whatever the case may be. Whenever you concentrate that many important things together, you're opening yourself up to a larger level of risk. In addition to that, as you mentioned, almost everything in museums started in almost everything in museums started in either a private collection or was ill-gotten through colonization. I mean, that's the vast majority of what's in museums is stuff that came out of private collections, and and I think that without an active collector market, you don't have that farm team on the ground able to ferret out all of those important things. I mean, right now is a fascinating time to be a postal history collector because all of the World War II material is now 70, 90, I mean, it's getting to that point where you're having all of this stuff come out of attics. And if you don't have a really active collector market that's out there trying to pick these things up, then it's all going to get lost to history. And the best way to ensure that there is no collector market is to make it illegal to be a collector or to put hindrances on being a collector. In addition to that, when you're a collector and you pay serious money for any kind of item, and even if you don't pay serious money, anything that you buy, you're actually going to take the time and look at it and do some research on it. And that's simply not true of most museums. Most museums have an enormous back room and warehouses and have unbelievable amounts of stuff that sits for hundreds of years in many cases and never is looked at by anybody. And when you have somebody that's putting some skin in the game and buying it and is trying to assemble a collection. For example, I saw a presentation from a gentleman that was doing blockade run mail during the Revolutionary War here in America.
Tell us what that means, blockade run mail. I don't know what that is. What's the blockade?
The British had blockaded ports. And I don't want to speak specific. I believe New York, but I don't know all of the history specifically, and I don't want to get it wrong. But they blockaded a number of ports, and so there were privateers that were running those blockades in order to get mail through. And he actually identified, I can't remember the number, but it was significant. It was somewhere between like 7 and 12 covers that were not previously known to be blockade run covers, that he had identified and brought to light, and that were sold as such. And collecting is full of examples and literature of people that are doing real scholarship on the items that they collect. And to say that they don't add something to the history is in my opinion, just ridiculous.